Also thought we'd just do it live as well, actually. Why not? Saves
Exactly.
people waiting. So we've put it out onto YouTube. It's on my LinkedIn. It's on the Implement AI YouTube and Twitter and probably Facebook as well. Although I rarely log into Facebook. So we're recording this on Sunday for those that are going to listen to the recording. Again, we missed last week. We seem to get every 2 weeks now because I was away in Budapest doing lots of brunches. And Alok, where were you? Alicante,
I
were
was
you?
in Alicante, I was in Spain. It was like traveling a bit here and there, so it's always difficult to coordinate.
Yeah, so it's quite difficult when we're both traveling. So today is Father's Day, so I'm hoping to be taken out today and probably another brunch, although I'll probably end up paying for it. So I'm looking forward to that. So as always, you haven't heard our show before, so we've got a podcast. It's called AI Assisted Organization Podcast, hosted by myself, Piers Linney, and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Alok Shukla. And what we do in this podcast is we talk about really AI. It's about AI clearly, but it's about the AI for business news. So we're not going to really go on and bang on about consumer-related AI. It's really about what do you need to understand about artificial intelligence so you can embrace it and deploy it in your business, to save money, grow revenue, and to become more effective. And we call that the AI-assisted organization model. So we're going to go through some AI for business news. So we kind of go through all the news and pick out what we think is interesting and talk about that. And then we have a theme as well. So our theme is going to be this week is about what we call putting AI to work. And you may have seen that we put some posts out there about this, but it's about, people want to learn about AI, which is clearly quite important, how it works, what it's capable of doing. But then the question is increasingly to our clients is, well, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Can we now put it to work? I'm going to explain to you why AI really is going to augment your sort of workforce, your colleagues, your human resources, and how you can do it with humans in the loop, what we call interactive AI agents, as well as what we call embedded AI agents, which are those that are just in the background, just crunching data that you never really need to
or doing tasks,
interact with them at all, as completing tasks. So that's the format. Let's get into the news. So I've been saying this for quite a while, but it's starting to happen now. And I think anyone who is in the the SEO business or internet advertising, whatever it might be, digital marketing, needs to understand that the internet is going away. And by that, what I mean is that this sort of cyberspace, as we call it, of these little websites with content, and we have to go and find or use things like Google to help us find them. Then we get long lists that are sort of laced with adverts, which can be quite annoying. That model, it's going to take some time, but Google have realized this, which is partly why they sat on the transformer model, which is the T in GPT, for quite some time, because they realized this, it's going away.
Yeah.
But what was interesting this week, or was because last week probably, is Perplexity AI. So if you haven't used Perplexity, give it a go. It's another large language model. It's more focusing on search. What it does give you is the source of all of its outputs, which is quite helpful in most cases. But they're now launching what they call Perplexity AI pages. So this is where you can complete a search. What it will then do is, rather than just give you a long list of stuff, it'll create an interactive web page. One that has links, it's got hyperlinks, and also one that you can talk to. So you can actually engage with the page and the AI and ask it questions. And then as you ask it more and more questions, it's going to improve the content on that page. So you can think of this, where I think about it, Alok, is it's like almost creating a website or web page on the fly for that moment in time, for that whatever you're looking for at that point in time. And then not only that, they built it so that you can then share it with other people.
It's like a personalized Wikipedia, isn't it? Right? Like whatever you're interested in and whatever you want to go deep dive in, you almost have that personalized page with all the references and all the data, just like a personalized topic on Wikipedia ready for you. And I think that's, like you're saying, how people will interact, how people will search for things, how they're getting information, that's already changing basically, right? Like, and the kind of behaviors that you're trying to get people to do in terms of, rather than just read a blog, it's going to have to be more interactive, like maybe offering tools or different things like this. But you have to start thinking about it. It's going to take some time to change, but those that are already understanding this, they're going to be able to ride the wave faster.
So, mark our words, the internet is going to change over the next couple of years, and then eventually, I just don't see. I mean, I use this example all the time, but eventually you'll have an AI agent that understands you. It knows what mood you're in, knows your heartbeat, everything about you. It knows what you're trying to achieve, what you want to find. It's going to go and find it for you. And it's not what it's not going to do is search through a lot of content on a web page. All it's going to do is go and talk to a corporate, an Amazon AI agent, and have a discussion, have a negotiation, and come back with the answer. There'll be no kind of web, some cyberspace in the middle, unless you just fancy going around there and browsing it for historical reasons.
Well, one of the foundational steps for that has just happened, and we're going to talk about that a bit later on, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll come on to that later. So moving on, text to sound. So you've got text to everything now. You've had text to text originally, text to audio, text to speech, text to video, which we're going to talk about as well. Now you've got text to sound, and this is the 11 Labs. Or when one launched, you see others launch it as well. We've now launched an AI audio model, which means you can now describe a sound effect, like a background sound if you're making a video that you'd like, and it will then go and create it. Now, I've made videos before, and I've kind of done the whole kind of soundscape, if you want to call it that, and spent an hour flipping through things like an epidemic sound, trying to find just the right sound, the background sound. You might want running water or leaves and wind, whatever the hell it is. And now you don't have to do that anymore. You can just describe it. It'll create it. If you don't quite like it, you can tweak it, and it will create the sound for you. So again, this concept of stock video, stock images, stock sound libraries is going away. And the point here really is for business is that a lot of companies not quite using this yet, but you are going to see, we're going to come on to it later, text to video come in. But it means that expense, which I've struggled with so many times about, I want to create, I don't know, a explainer animation or something like that. Now you can create an explainer, of 4K, film quality video of whatever you choose to. Not only that, you can add the music. You can create that using AI as well. There's now text to music, and now you can add the soundscape as well. Do the sort of the sound production by using text to sound. So the point here is that if you're not creative, you can now be creative, whether it's images, whether it's sound, whether it's audio, and whether it's video. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and if you think about like all of the work or all of the kind of like roles or jobs that are in those sectors, like sound effect creation or different things like this, it's going to have like big implications for all of those different areas. And so it's understanding that any kind of like digital asset creation, any kind of like audio, video, model, 3D picture, anything, these are just going to become increasingly easier to make and customizable in the way you want it. So I definitely think that anyone who's in that space that wants to create more content, they've got all the tools available for them now. And anybody that was having like quite a large cost structure in a different way, that's going to be changed and transformed as well, basically.
And also what you're going to see is that we haven't actually launched Sora yet, but some other ones coming. But you're going to see that this is clearly just going to be built in. So if you think about AI, if it creates an image, a video is just a load of still images essentially stitched together. It can look at the image, understand what's in the image, the context. It could be, again, let's go back to water. It could be a stream, the sound of trickling water down a stream, and it will understand what's in the image and then go and create the sounds on the fly to match the video that you've created. So I think it's really exciting. I think it's going to be something that all businesses will be able to use. They're not quite there yet, stitching this all together and launching them, but it is coming.
But one thing there for analysis, you shared with me earlier like a video of like the GPT-4 where it was like they were using it in video mode, and then they were doing like a kind of mock interview, and the AI was watching the facial expressions of the person while they were doing the interview and how they were reacting. It's not going to be that far off where you're going to have like these video creations, and then you could potentially be seeing how someone's responding to it, which is the boring bit, which is the good bit, and then that could then suggest automatically which bits to make more lively and more interactive. I think what this is going to create is like even more addictive content. Like it's just going to lead to
that is true. Yeah, I think about the advertising industry creatives where they'll build into their plan that, look, we can do, I don't know, 3 or 4 iterations of the creative for this client. Now you can do 30 or 40 actually.
Yeah.
In fact, you can just do it in the meeting live,
and based on feedback. Yeah.
Based on feedback, and then like you're saying there, then you can do a little sort of I don't know, test with a number of potential target customers and see what their response is, and tweak it in real time so you fine tune it. So you're right. You're going to find that content generally, you can forget A/B testing. It's going to be A to Z testing in one go. But on that note, they're moving on. So AI video generator. So you may or may not have seen, if you haven't yet, go to the OpenAI website and look for the Sora post they did. SORA, and this was their text to video model, which is absolutely blew everybody away. It's just bonkers. But now you're seeing, as you always do, which is good for all of us in terms of competition. Now you're seeing that the Chinese have got one called Kling. So they've now launched a text to, I don't know if they actually launched it, but you can have a look at it, a text to video model, which apparently allows you to make longer videos. Obviously, everyone's got to compete on length, but also they're better quality. Now, having said that, the Sora that we saw was probably 4 months ago now. So you can bet your bottom dollar that by the time it's launched, it's going to be better again. There's another one as well. This is Luma AI. They've launched one called Dream Machine. This is another text to video model as well. So going back to the text to sound, I think that the core and the beauty of this is, when I say video, it hasn't got to be sort of 4K quality, like a beautiful sort of film clip. This can be animation, it can be anime, it can be whatever the hell you want it to. So if you're thinking about doing explainers on the fly, so imagine that you've got a customer that's got a problem and they're struggling. You don't have to make 15 explainer videos. What you can now do is create on the fly a cartoon, whatever format you want, explain the video for that customer to solve that particular issue.
I mean, you're basically combining what you just talked about with Perplexity, with that personalized web page or that data of what you were looking for in that area, with dynamic video creation with audio, essentially, isn't it? Right? Like,
yeah.
And that's going to be, quite transformative, in the way that that's going to be a lot easier for people to interact with. But also, like, it's just going to make people notice the gap between this super convenient way of like getting information or getting support and a non-AI way. It's just going to increase that delta, basically, isn't it? Right? And then that's going to lead more people to kind of switch. It's a bit like the Amazon Prime effect. Everything has to be like next day or same day, and if it's not, it's rubbish, basically, isn't it? Right?
That's what we always say as well. AI, you don't have to go and drop everything, but we have to do is starting to understand it, because as that exponential curve of ability, capability starts to move, as it's compounding now, and if you're not sort of on it and understand it, it's going to be very, very hard to catch up. So the point is to get involved and learn how to embrace and use this stuff. Right, moving on, different subject. So one thing we've talked about quite a lot is, we talk about the sort of AI, the sort of human first world, moving to AI assisted organization world, and then eventually to an AI first world. And you're going to see that, that you're starting to see cognitive labor or knowledge work is being augmented, in some cases displaced, in some cases that it can do things that humans just can't. But humans are being augmented with artificial intelligence in knowledge work. But eventually, you're going to see this in physical labor as well. Now, there's been quite a few false dawns for robotics, and we're probably all aware of them. But I'm not sure this time is a false dawn. So what you're now seeing is, before it was very expensive and difficult to get robots to understand the built environment to the human environment. Humanoid robots are, I always think that why humanoid, because there are lots of ways you can have a different form factors, but they're kind of designed really to navigate the world that we built for ourselves. Exactly. So they can understand it and navigate it. And what was difficult is designing models. However, what's happened now is these large language models, the generalist models, are proving to be better for these humanoid robots than specialist models. So what you're now seeing is this combination of capable humanoid robots. So you've seen Figure AI, Boston Dynamics. I'm not sure about the Tesla bot. I think there's people in the back office driving those things from what I've seen. But you're seeing these humanoid robots are getting better. Now, OpenAI invested in Figure AI, and they shut down their own robotics division in 2021, I think it was. Now the news is that they've kind of blown the dust off it, hiring people, and they're going back into robotics. And what's quite interesting there is that they could just be the model that drives the robots, as opposed to actually designing and building the hardware. But it seems now they want to go into both, because eventually physical AI, embodied AI, robotics is going to be a big thing.
Huge. And like I was showing you that video of that robot dog, basically. I don't know if some people might have seen it, where there were some clips which were robot dogs like navigating different environments. There were some which were actually used in a military capacity, and they were showing with weapons on it, basically. But those robot dogs which can navigate different environments, they start from like $5,000. So you think
there were hundreds of thousands, weren't there, like a couple of years ago?
For like much more industrial ones, but I'm talking about like now there are like versions of that available in that kind of figure, and that's crazy, right? So if you think about like security patrolling, navigating a property, like rather than having people, you can easily have that versus and then it could be a drone which could go and navigate different areas, facilities management, so many different kind of like night watchman type roles. a lot of these things could be kind of like augmented or monitored, and then you've already got the capability where the AI is taking the video feed, knows what's going on, recognize if that person was there. You can even have a list of faces of if any of these people come by. It's very powerful what you can do now, basically, right? Especially with complex.
What you see though is you're now seeing, as in all parts of AI, huge investment pouring into it. So you're going to see that the investment, the innovation starts to accelerate. And when you put these two things together, the large language model, large language models might not be the AI model we use in the future, but for right now, it does quite a good job. And you start combining this very capable sort of humanoid robots. You're gonna see these things appear in the workplace quite quickly. If you think about, a robot that can work, 24/7, 365 a day, a year, doing basic things now. And they're costing, I don't know, 50, even £100,000, like a nice car. If you finance these things, right, and they're costing, I don't know, £1,000 a month, then you start to think about, well, how does that compare to the cost of a human doing the same task? So already, the economics are beginning to work.
I've seen versions of it where it's basically it's almost like a torso with the hands, and then you can customize that. And I think they're between 20 and 30,000, dollars or pounds or whatever like that. And that potentially has been used in places like a barista, making coffee, doing different things, or even navigating and doing different parts of household functions or different things. So it's going to happen quite quickly, where it's repeated labor within kitchens or different areas and things like this. So I think the next point you're going to talk about, the guy you're talking about, he was talking about robotics everywhere, basically. So that's
moving on to Jensen Huang, who's was it the second most valuable company in the world, or third, because Microsoft, Apple, and Nvidia keep sort of swapping places. And he did a keynote at Computex, which is a kind of big tech conference, basically. And he always says some interesting things. It's quite hard sometimes to understand what Nvidia does. People know it quite well for its GPUs, the sort of processors that they were used for kind of like the Bitcoin, and now they're kind of used for AI. But they do lots of other things. Well, the Omniverse, they've got things where you can actually replicate an entire factory and then tweak things, see if what the productivity or efficiency gain is, and then do that in real life. There are lots of different models, and he was saying that they're now moving as fast as the world can absorb the technology, which is quite interesting. So he's saying that they're now on a 12-month kind of cadence, really, on their sort of fundamental technology, which are these chips. So they launched one a couple of months ago, and they're looking at launching one in another 12 months. Now, these chips are like, $30,000 each in some cases, but the amount of value they create is absolutely enormous. So he mentioned a few things. So one was NIM, N-I-M. I'm not sure what that stands for, to be honest with you. And the world developers can ask, what they're kind of doing is disaggregating and breaking down artificial intelligence. So you've got the models, you've got the chips they run on, you've got the networking, which they also do as well. And the idea is, how do you take this processing power and the networking and the infrastructure needs to sit on, and how do you sort of deploy that anywhere? So they're kind of breaking it down, atomizing it almost. So now you can deploy these things, what they call microservices, and these sort of optimized containers on any infrastructure you want. So cloud, data centers, even workstations, even locally if you want them to. So this means that enterprises, this is still larger enterprises, but they can now deploy this technology anywhere, and it's going to be more efficient. So he gave an example that if you're running Meta's Llama 3.8b in a NIM, it produces 3 times more generative AI token. That's the output. A token's kind of like a word. On the accelerated infrastructure, compared to not having one of these sort of optimized containers. So that's quite interesting in that, how they're going to be. You've got cloud infrastructure. You may not be using NVIDIA. You may not be using Microsoft. You might be using your own. You might be using, I don't know, Oracle, or you built your own. You've got a sort of a private cloud, and they can deploy these things. And again, the price is just dropping very, very quickly. Other thing you mentioned was, again, another exciting thing. If you've seen the Microsoft AI PCs, then I couldn't work out whether they're launching their own PCs, or I'm not sure they are, but they're also got a partnership with Microsoft to embed this artificial intelligence at the OS level in laptops. So the form factor, the way you interact with technology, is going to change massively. And again, something we're quite focused on is very much going to be voice. And again, as we just mentioned, going back to robots, he thinks that the next wave of AI, well, I'm not sure we've finished with the first wave yet, but the next wave of AI is going to be physical AI, embodied AI, i.e. robots. And that's something they're quite focused on.
No, I think it's going to be completely. It's going to be crazy. Like if you think about like how much Nvidia's already grown, and you think about all the kind of like possibilities and capabilities ahead, and like all and this is going to lead to, I mean, obviously with the next point that we're going to talk about as well, that this is going to lead to a massive amount of hardware replacement, because up until now, there's been no real reason to like maybe upgrade or change, because everything was kind of same old, same old. But now if you're going to start having new AI capabilities embedded into new, hardware and infrastructure, just like Nvidia's capitalized on that by like, replicating and changing everything within all the data centers and into their GPUs and all the different areas they've got, basically, it's going to be the same in terms of like people are going to want, like more productive laptops and more productive computers and things that can do more things autonomously, basically, right? Like it's going to lead to quite a lot of re-engineering and repurchase, and I think it's going to like change a bit of the dynamic of like what people expect, basically.
Well, it's quite interesting that Moore's law, the capability of chips kind of doubles every sort of 2 years. We kind of thought it was coming to an end, and now you're seeing that. I don't know if we're actually beyond Moore's law now, but you're right. But the value, the extra value of being able to output more tokens, the kind of output of a large language model using better underlying technology, be that chips, be that data centers design, be that networking, the value of being able to do that is enormous. So there's an impetus there. There's a reason to try and keep investing and improving this technology, because it is still quite expensive for people running these models in the Microsoft of the world, the Googles, the Amazons, to run these models. Whenever you have a request, or you're in ChatGPT or Claude, whatever you use, or Gemini, you have a request, it's actually still quite expensive. So, and these things, what they want to do, think about it at scale. And I want to talk about Apple in a moment as well. Building this into Siri and the Amazon Alexa and Google Home, there's a massive competitive reason to improve this technology. Whereas before it was, but it was kind of linear almost.
Yeah. Exactly. There was no killer app. There was no reason for people to do platform shifts and change. But now they're all battling to try and lock you into their ecosystem, basically.
Yes, it's exponential. Now, one of the things that we tend to use Teams actually, but it's Zoom. So you probably all know Zoom. You've all used Zoom. So I think a lot of these companies now, Zoom. I was reading about Squarespace as well. They're kind of seeing the writing on the wall. Really, is that the big players in the Microsoft of the world, that they can embed artificial intelligence, what it's going to look like into their productivity suites and things like Teams, or Google embed it into Google Meeting and all this kind of stuff. Meet Me. Where what's their competitive edge as the world begins to move on? So the founder of Zoom, Eric Yuan, he was saying that I think this is still several years out. That I mean, we have AIs like if you haven't used one yet, you should be using one. You can use it in Microsoft 365 Copilot as well. AIs attend meetings for you and take notes and summarize them. And allow you to catch up. So we use this all the time. And what he's saying is that in the not too distant future, you won't have a note taker. Your avatar will be able to attend a meeting. So I've already had several meetings where there's been 3 AIs invited, no humans turned up, and there's just these 3 AI just sitting there looking at each other. I saw the transcript, which wasn't that exciting. But you imagine now, we've seen this we've seen the CEO of Bumble say as well in dating, but avatars could turn up to a meeting and contribute what you want them to, or just listen and take notes and come back and feed back to you what happened and what the actions were for you. So that's quite, in a way, obvious. You would have thought, kind of seen it already, but it's interesting now that they're actually out there sort of saying this. But I still think that there's going to be a world of winners and losers.
Yes.
And increasingly, it's the ones who are investing, these big companies have got literally gazillions in bank accounts. They've got more money in banks than some companies generating GDP over a decade. And they're starting to spend that money to get ahead. It's going to be very hard for these also runs to catch up.
If you think about where this is kind of going, so I was reading about this other person where they were talking about that AI literally took their job, and they were basically like a designer, and they were designing like app screens and things like this. And basically what they said was like what happened is like all of their library of like toolkits, modules, everything like that had been fed into a system, and then basically based on, because they weren't doing extremely innovative stuff, based on like new projects, it was suggesting from their own existing library what should happen next. And they were saying that they didn't need him as much anymore. If you think about this digital twin example, at some point in the future, then if the digital twin is doing the task and doing the thing at some point, at what point is that person actually responsible for the economic output that they're delivering? It's going to become quite interesting, essentially.
All the mistakes they made. So if your digital twin steps in it, who does the HR department contact? You or your digital twin? So I think there's a lot of thought to go through having avatars
and it'd be like this remote work,
representing you.
but also be like this remote work thing. Like, many people want it in person or not, basically. And if it gets to the point where you've got a meeting, you're turning up for it, and they're sending a digital twin to it, they're not. It's not the same, right? So it's a question of like, what is the purpose of the meeting and what you're trying to kind of get done. So I think this is going to lead to.
Well, we always say AI today is a worse it's ever going to be. So today is not the same, but in 5 years, you may not be able to tell the difference at all in any way, shape, or form. And the question then is, if we're still prompting, then if you prompted or fine-tuned or giving it the right context and giving it the right, told it how you want to respond, it understands how it should respond in terms of being you, may not be able to tell. And we're going to come on to in the sort of theme part of this podcast and talk about how people are interacting with AI call agents. So there's no visual aspect to it, but in terms of voice, it's becoming interesting already. So let's watch that space. And finally, the one it was kind of a week ago now, but we'll cover it here. The big one, in a way, although it's not, it's kind of business related in terms of we all have phones. I use iPhone, so it's going to inevitably change the way in which you interact with people via these platforms. But Apple have launched Apple AI, so they've kind of cheekily called it Apple Intelligence. They've also done a deal. Obviously, they were thinking about how to do this, whether they build it themselves. But even Apple, with all of its resources, decided not to try and become an AI, a large language model creator or developer. It's partnered with OpenAI, which is quite interesting. And also what's quite interesting, because, Google pay Apple, I can't remember the number now, but it's literally tens of billions with a B of dollars to have Google Maps on Apple phones and Google Search. So, but apparently this deal between Apple and OpenAI, there's no money. It's like a contra deal. Apple gets to use technology and OpenAI get people to sort of use this technology and become more comfortable with it on these devices. So it's quite a big deal. Now, I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be rolled out, but a couple of things. Let's just go through what they've said they're going to launch. So this is going to be a new, it's a bit like the AI embedded in the PCs, the laptops these days, but everything you do in AI, we'll come on to Siri at the end because that's the obvious one. But anything to do with your iPad, your iMac, your iPhone, it's going to be integrated at the iOS 18 level. It's going to leverage artificial intelligence. So, of course, they've said it's going to be a privacy focus, as Apple have sort of pinned their colours to that mast. But in terms of language tools, they'll be able to, none of this is really that exciting or new because you can do this anyway. You can do a lot of this in Microsoft 365, for example, but this is now on your phone, is to create content, rewrite content, proofread content, and summarize content. Summarization it's like having a time machine at the end of the day. I use that all the time in terms of artificial intelligence. If you don't use it to summarize videos or things you want to read, then you should be doing that. Priority feature, so it prioritizes important emails, notifications. Again, it knows what you're trying to achieve, the context. You can read them, check them, and then prioritize them for you. I'll be interested to see how that actually works. And then audio, so record, but like text really, record, transcribe, and summarize audio as well, which is really, really helpful. Voicemails, long messages, whatever that might be. Image creation, again, not that particularly exciting. Image playground for creating fun images. To me, fun images means I haven't really found a real decent use case for it. You can create fun images quite easily anywhere already. And then Genmojis. So now you can take a picture of somebody and create an emoji. So what, right? It's fun, but not much of a business use case. But the big one is Siri. And I've been saying this podcast for over a year now. Well, not quite a year, but we're getting there towards a year. That Siri's still just disappointing. So is Amazon Alexa. But that installed, say Amazon, that installed base of hardware and phones, the amount of people using these things, have Siri on there. Once these things become intelligent, and if you didn't see the OpenAI launch of of GPT 4.0 for Omni. We had the kind of, you've seen the film Her, that kind of interaction with an AI was very, very natural. And if Siri is anything like that, then that is going to completely change the game and how you interact with your phone. So now you can say to your phone, for example, can you just go for my images and find out when so-and-so had this cake on a birthday? And it can understand what you're talking about. You can create a search. It can go for your photographs and find it and return that to you. So you can imagine now it's not just about creating content, it's finding content and using the content you create. That enormous stream of data we leave behind ourselves every day, you can now make more use of it. So it's exciting, but not, it's exciting in terms of Siri, I think, and you're seeing this technology become normalized, but nothing that exciting what they're actually doing. What do you think?
I think Apple are always very careful and very focused on the consumer experience. And what they've done is they've basically set the foundations for, their vision of, artificial intelligence or Apple intelligence, which is going to be like, privacy first, secure, because they know how much information is on everyone's mobile phone. And then, like these devices like Rabbit or, Humane or different things where they were trying to rely on the voice interface. Well, if that's already built into your iWatch or your iPhone, you don't need anything else basically, right? And your iPhone already knows all your emails, what your browsing history is, what you're looking at, what PDFs you read, what Kindle you read. And if you could say, okay, summarize for me, I've got this challenge at work, what things should I start looking at? I think this is going to be the kind of platform for personal AI, basically, and I think that what they're doing is they're introducing, billions of people who are on the Apple platform to this technology, which will then make them think of it as like almost as a given. So if everything is like this and my experience on my phone is like this, why is your website so rubbish? Or why is this experience like? So I think what they've done is they've done a huge step change, and many people are going to replace their iPhones because it's not all the iPhones that can do this. It's only the latest ones, basically. So again, I think this is entering a step change of like, those that are going to leverage this technology and those that are not. And there's going to be big differences in those two, basically.
It always amazes me how quickly it's gone from, GPT-3 to 3.5 turbo, which is more useful, to now it's going to be embedded into, you've got new AI PCs from Microsoft, and now in Apple OS. It's incredible. But you're right. I think that it's going to be like the microwave. It works. It makes great baked potato, but no one really understands how and why you don't get irradiated when you're peering into it.
But the number of other businesses that are going to be impacted by these things, like I look at like transcription softwares or, even other apps or tools which are for writing tools. So everything is just getting embedded into like the infrastructure and the operating system and the tools. And then they were even talking how like, Siri will be behind everything else. So over time, it will be able to like, even open up your apps and do different things for you and all that kind of stuff. We're moving into that agentic world. So I think that like, this is like more profound than people realize, because like now that Apple has done it, most people are on Apple or they're on or Samsung or like Android basically. But both of those ecosystems are like embracing this, and
Well,
it's
Google will do it as well. But what's interesting though is that, which kind of brings us into our kind of theme today, really, is about putting this to work. Is that, and you said this before, is that once everybody's got this right, it's like having spell check. Everyone's got spell check. Not everyone uses it, including myself, but everyone's got spell check. So how do you then use your technology to differentiate? And that's what we're going to sort of come on to in a moment. And the last bit of news, which I thought was quite apt, given where we are in the UK, we've got elections. I don't know what country in the moment, it seems to be elections. There's an AI candidate running the UK election called AI Steve. So it's literally just an AI avatar. I think it's a PR stunt for some AI company, but it's an AI avatar now running an election. That's a bit of a joke, but 10 years down the line, these things might be more useful, more knowledgeable, and more productive than politicians. We shall see.
Exactly.
Right. So a bit about us. If you haven't listened to before, we have white papers. Go to our website, implementai.io. Download our white papers. We also have a newsletter as well called AI Insider, which we'll probably send out early next week. A lot of it's based on the content of the podcast as well. We have an AI training academy. So we do everything, from AI fundamentals to prompt engineering to Microsoft 365 Copilot to creating content. There's a whole list in there, using AI yourself. So that's quite a big part of what we do. And training is the first superpower. If you don't understand the technology, you don't understand what it can do, how it works, capabilities, how you're supposed to be able to sort of use it. It's like handing someone a saxophone who's never had a lessons. It's not going to sound great. So the AI Training Academy is actually quite important. And we do programs that help you understand artificial intelligence and how to deploy it in your business and implement it and create an AI assisted organization. But we're rapidly moving into, which we're going to come on to in a moment, into actually deploying AI agents. So these agents working in your business with your colleagues, your workforce, your team, your human resource, whatever you call it, depending how big you are, to create value and create competitive advantage. So Ala, you lead on this. So we call this intelligent AI automation, but really what we're focusing on here is AI, schmai, great. How do I put this technology to work?
Exactly. So let's start thinking about it. So the whole point is like most businesses, well, all businesses have team members. Each team member has a role. Each role has different goals within that job. And then each of those goals have tasks. Now, you've obviously got these new hardware, software releases from Microsoft and Apple, where there is software where the team member can do the task easier or better. So that's like level one, let's call that, for example, right? But now that you've also got tasks where the AI by itself could complete that entire task and that area of a goal. So imagine there was like 4 goals in a particular job, and now the AI can do 2 of those. That means that team member's got 50% of their time free, which can be reallocated to different things or higher value tasks. And it also means the capacity on the workload of what could be done can be increased. Let's give a very clear example. So, for example, like many businesses have jobs where they've got people phoning people and they need to like reach out to a certain number of people a day. I think on average, a person can call 80 people in a day, for example, like this, right? You know, depending on like length of the phone call, all the different elements like this. AI can call people much, much quicker. It can reach many more people, and it can always follow the script. So the kind of like most junior aspect of, you know, like that role in large volume could be done. So one AI could be doing the work of 5 people, and then that is how you start putting AI to work, because you've got an agent which is then doing the task at scale in a repeatable way in your business, and then helping their human team member do things further.
Right.
So
Okay. But you're always straight up to the 20-meter board, though. So just explain AI agents,
yes,
interactive, embedded, to what they
great.
are a little bit.
So what we're talking about is AI that will actually do a task or complete a goal. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a software person's using. We're talking about getting things done autonomously. So within that, there's kind of like 2 dimensions to it. You've got what we call interactive agents and embedded agents. So an interactive agent would be customer facing or team member facing, and the team member or the
So
customer.
I call that human in the loop.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so that would be like where it's actually interacting with the person either by voice or by text, or you know, dynamically showing the data that's needed. But what they're then doing is they're solving problems and completing outcomes, and then they will fill out a form, you know, update the CRM, you know, complete you know, a ticket or whatever is required, basically.
And you've got no recruitment costs, no training costs, no holidays, no sickness, no illness. They'll work 365 days, 24 hours a week, and there's no management overhead or heat,
Correct.
rate, lights, desk, hardware, etc., etc.
Exactly. So, and they'll always stay on script. There's no manager required for that, and it will always be kind of consistent in that way. So those, if you're kind of looking at it, they can operate at an hourly rate far below what a person would do, but they can also do the volume much greater what is possible. So for certain roles and certain tasks, because many people have jobs that are just not being done, like calling inactive customers, or you know, like, you know, for example, accounts receivable, chasing people and stuff like this. Many people don't have those time to do those things. They don't have the team members, and people say, I'm busy doing this. This is where an AI could do some of those different areas. So that's
And especially, I always talk about this. I've been kind of drawing it. I haven't quite got it right. This sort of 4, like a chart with a matrix with 4 boxes, and kind of bottom left is AI can definitely do it, and it adds value, but it's more complicated. To going upwards, technology is not quite there yet, but it's coming. So this is kind of bottom left box where you choose things that the technology can do today, like triaging, customer service, for example. It can do it today, and it adds a huge amount of value. That's what the focus should be.
exactly. So that's interactive agents. The other one is embedded agents. So that's like what we can call like back office operations, that kind of work. And what they would be doing is they would be crunching data. So let's look at example. Imagine there's a load of documents that start coming in by email. So all the attachments, it can read all the attachments of every single email. It can identify if there's specific transaction information, or it's got all the information relevant for that customer's onboarding or that new employee's onboarding or whatever it is. It identify what information is missing, and it can communicate to the person what needs to happen. So that is autonomously processing part of the inbox. Or it could also be, let's just say, for example, there are particular work requests which come in, and it would analyze all of those to see, is it all complete? Is everything within there? And then can it process the next stage, or does it need to go back for something else? So this is very good for onboarding, compliance, like following process.
Or data, crunching data, where
Yes,
you don't
yeah.
need data analysts anymore.
Correct. So even in some health situations, basically, it can analyze the content of different areas. It can spot for trends. Like, for example, there's an issue where the volume of let's call it like prescriptions, or the volume of this or the volume of that has dropped. You need to be alerted to that and to understand what's going on. It could almost be an autonomous manager. It could be tracking, for example, website visits or different areas or different things within your business, and then it can alert when changes. Performance reviews, all these sorts of things. So that can also then be like, for example, when they're doing the HR reviews, they've got all the information going on with the person, but it could be highlighting and identifying different areas of growth or information. So the point here is, before, everybody had access to the same things, basically talent and management and some skill. And then how well you managed people and how well you could recruit people was your competitive edge. Now you have a competitive edge of like, how many kind of like AI agents can you deploy within your business to increase your capacity? So one example, right? Like, for example, like we were talking about phone calls. Like I was telling you the other day, like the AI made 66 phone calls in 25 minutes, and many of these phone calls were 2.5 minutes long. Think about that. Do the maths on that, right? It's nearly nearly 2 hours worth of phone calls within 25 minutes. That's just not possible with a person. So you can do that first stage outreach, first stage understanding of what's going on. There's so many different applications for that.
So the ones that are just in the background autonomously getting on with it, they're what we call embedded agents, as opposed to the ones where they're interactive and humans in the loop. And then just go through some more examples then. So, and also what I think is quite interesting is that we deploy these now, and what we do. So you've got this world of intelligent automation, okay, which was kind of logic, really, things, robotic process automation. But now what you can do, which you couldn't do before, is inject intelligence. So before it could read something and extract some data, which was quite complicated to do, and send it somewhere. Now that's quite easy to do, but also now it can actually write the email, it can write the letter, it can actually understand copying and the English language. So the point here is that you inject intelligence into automation, and this means now it's accessible to businesses of all sizes.
Yes, you could basically have, let's say you had like an assistant who was drafting documents or proposals for people or stuff like this. It could start doing the elements of that. You really need to have like a different thought process about like how you are hiring, growing, or doing different things. I don't know whether you saw the update from Klarna, for example. They said they've actually frozen all hiring, for example. They've expanded the capacity of the AI agents. So in terms of examples, where AI can already do things in a great way is on the phone, in terms of like reaching out to people, confirming people, booking things, capturing information, following up on lost customers,
credit control,
like accounts receivable, all those different things, even confirming who the right person is, even as part of recruitment outreach, all different areas like that within that. And also within data processing with embedded agents, where it's very, very good is document analysis, getting information from documents, getting all the information from within your database to see like what trends are there, what's not there. It could even like automate, for example, many aspects of like email management, identifying the attachments, uploading it, completing customer records. So many different things where they always get the person to like, don't forget to do this or don't forget to do that. The AI could be listening to every single phone call and automatically updating the CRM as a result of it. So the whole point here is the businesses that start to employ these and start to do these things can get an advantage. And we've seen some really cool interactions,
I tell you, it is fascinating, because I was always, when we started deploying these for clients, I always thought, you think of robocalls, right? And we get robocalls, and there's like a big delay, and it goes, "Hello, mine," and you've put the phone down, basically. And I was fascinated to see how people responded to these things. And I don't think I've heard quite a few of these things now where they've kind of clocked it that it's not human, they assume it's human because it's so natural. And the beauty of these AIs is you can do 80 calls in a day, and the 80th call is just as high quality as the first call of the day. And just through, they're polite because that's how you prompt them. They're polite, but just through brute force, they seem to get the answer. But people just interact as if they're human. It's amazing.
Yeah, because like you said, like a person does 80 calls a day. This could do 80 calls in 30 minutes or less, basically, right? And absolutely, there's some interesting things I thought about from psychology. Like I saw, for example, there was a nice example I posted on LinkedIn where the person was saying, "Oh, you need to contact procurement." So basically, the AI had called a place and was trying to find out who the right person would be for purchasing a particular service. And the person was saying, "You need to, have you got a pen with you, a pen and paper?" And then the AI says, "Sure, I do. I've got it right here." And then they'd give the email address of the place, which is the procurement out or whatever like that. And then the smoothness and the kind of like responsiveness is just really, really good. And like I say, like in these other situations, I heard where people kind of wanted to hang up, but the AI just kept going in a cheerful way and they got the information that they wanted to. So that also tells me that like many people psychologically almost like put themselves down or
I think what amazes me is listening to lots of these phone calls is the AI typically is far clearer and more understandable than the humans they're calling.
Most people are not clear on the phone at all.
They're mumbling and they don't know
and breaking up and also like, so it's very interesting, so very, very interesting to see.
So the point here is, isn't it? It's about is not really thinking of AI for AI's sake. It's thinking of how do I, going back to your point, we've got roles, they've got goals, they're made up of tasks, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're tasks, what of those tasks, whether it's interactive, human loop, whether it's embedded behind the scenes, just crunching data, whatever it's doing. Like, and another good example is that analyzing recorded calls, right? Humans can't do that at this scale or speed. Is how do I, and which tasks can I automate, and which ones add the most value so the ROI is the highest?
Yes.
That's what it's about.
And to summarize here, what does this mean as a business owner? Right. If you're trying to sell your business in the future or grow a business which can be sold, it's going to be sold on a multiple of profit potentially, right? Like, and how that's going to work. And most businesses have like a mature cost structure where this industry has this like 10% EBITDA, profit, or 5% EBITDA, or 20% EBITDA, whatever it is, and everybody's like there or thereabouts. And if their business is valued on 8 or 10 times that profit, moving that a few digits can make a huge difference in terms of value. What this can do is you can then reallocate some of your team members from low value or high volume tasks, which they couldn't cover. For example, chasing people for late payments. AI can do that basically by phone, by email, by whatever, basically, right? And then at the same time, it means that the people that were in your accounts receivable department could be reallocated to other areas or doing different things, and your cost structure can start to change. So before, if you were spending, 12% on your finance function or whatever it was like this, you could maybe change that to 10% or 9% or whatever like this, right?
Yeah.
This is where your advantages come. So the person who's strategic about this and says, okay, I want to grow top line revenue by using, more interactive agents and doing different business focus stuff, and I also want to cut some of my operational cost by increasing cash conversion of collections and also a certain element of administration, they're the ones that are going to win.
And I think this, going back to my M&A background, so I think this is a fantastic opportunity for anybody involved in M&A, because in M&A, really, it's about the synergies, right? And the obvious ones are, you take out the sort of finance function, things that are basically duplicate things like basics like that. But what this means, though, is now you can have this sort of AI, what we call an AI operating system, really, a platform, and you can embed that in the target. And then, as you just said there, you change the dynamics within that P&L and the profit, so you can grow revenue faster. You can reassign people to do things that are more meaningful, what means you don't have to hire. It means that people are more likely to hang around and stay, so your employee churn goes down because they're doing more meaningful work. What that means in M&A is you can extract more value, more synergy out of the acquisition, which means you can make more profit, or if you need to, you can maybe pay slightly more to win that deal.
Exactly. So if you think about like these roll-ups where people would like consolidate, 20 accountancy firms or 50 dental practices or, 60 vets or, 50 restaurants, what they would generally do is like once they get to like 10 or 20 of those, they would be like creating a head office function, and they've got to have a whole team member in there. They have their own call center, they have their own, central, compliance department, they have their own, administrative departments and stuff like this. Now, if you build AI versions of that, they're going to be cheaper with greater capacity. And this is going to like allow almost like a 2.0 version model of their roll-up, basically. Like it's like we've been talking about, the AI operating system. So I think there's some very exciting times where people are going to be replacing their hardware and replacing their kind of like processes and kind of almost operating functions as well within the business.
Right, we're going to leave it there, right? So that's our intelligent AI automation. How do you put AI to work? And I mean, actually to work, to make money. So we're going to be issuing, and we've got some more literature, another white paper that we're going to actually publish relating to this. And we're going to tweak our website as well. But we've spent about a year now working with clients, working out what it is they want, how they want to implement AI. And this is where we've ended up. So we think it's actually quite exciting. Now, AI every week, usually it's an external one. This week it's not. It's going to be our AI call agent. If you haven't heard it, go and listen to some of the demos Alok's posted. I think it's on LinkedIn. And it's just fascinating hearing how humans interact with this technology, because there's, people all say to us, but do they know it's an AI like a robocall? No, they don't. Now, obviously, if you're trying to ring somebody up some way down your sales pipeline to close some complex sale, you're probably not going to get an AI to ring them. But for the basic things we're talking about is in re-engaging customers, especially inbound customer support, triaging customer support, dealing with the easy stuff, and then passing on the more complicated things to humans, whether it's credit control, whether it's just politely chasing people up, or even the first top of your funnel prospecting. Yes, it can do that right now, today. And don't forget, as we always say, AI today, not tomorrow, today is the worst it's ever going to be. Whew, right, so what was that, 50 minutes? We've got through quite a lot there. I hope we've added some value. We've done this live today because we think we just want to get it out, to be quite frank. But this will be a podcast as well, an audio one, and look out for it on YouTube as well, although it will be there already now. So again, sign up to our website, download our white papers, look out for our new white papers and sort of literature on intelligent AI automation, interactive agents, and embedded agents. If you want agents for your business, you want to deploying AI, these agents are going to augment your human resources, your colleagues, even yourself. Get in touch with us and look out, sign up for our AI Insider newsletter. And please do rate the show if you enjoyed it when you can, wherever you can. And that's it. It's Father's Day. I'm going out for lunch. Alok's working on that. And that's it for this week. So this is the AI Assisted Organization podcast, hosted by myself, Piers Linney, my co-founder and co-host, Dr. Alok Shukla. We'll see you again, hopefully, next week.
See you next week.